Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Legacy Leaders. Today, Scott McMeans, yours truly, is joined with Gary Bernstein of the Bernstein Group and Associates. Now, he also has a very interesting affiliation with Ohio University. I'll let him talk a little bit more about that. But first, I want Gary to just introduce himself. So, the camera and the microphone are yours, sir. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and really what is it that you're doing with Ohio University?
Thank you, Scott. It's great being here, and I appreciate the opportunity to come on your podcast. My career has been pretty eclectic since I graduated college. Currently, I'm a president and owner of Bernstein Group and Associates. It's a small boutique little consulting firm where we address and help nonprofits thrive and grow. In addition to that, I'm an assistant professor of instruction in sport administration at the Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, where where I direct the program, the Masters of Sport Administration program, which happens to be the number one program that was founded in 1966, and also it's a very highly ranked program currently around the world. So I teach sport administration classes in facility and event management, sport marketing. I even teach a class on the business of baseball, which is a real fun class of mine. And then I direct the graduate program, which is a highly rated program where we prepare students for their careers in sports administration.
There's a lot there. What's the connection between the Bernstein Group and the work that you're doing at Ohio University? What brought you to bring those two worlds together? Because normally I wouldn't think they'd be together. So walk me through it.
Well, there's really not a lot of connection. My career, my main career after college was to work in the nonprofit sector. I started as an athletic director in a Jewish community center, and I worked my way up through the ranks to become a CEO for many years. So along the way, I was able to build buildings, fundraise for building, capital projects, work in membership development, marketing, communication, supervision, leadership, and everything in between. And because of those 35 years of experiences, I was able then to parlay that into teaching those type of concepts of leadership, nonprofit leadership, business management in the university setting. So basically, right now, I'm I'm in my encore career, as I like to refer to it. So after 35 or more years working in the nonprofit sector as a CEO and athletic director, I'm now taking those skills, those experiences, those opportunities, and teaching those in classes like a nonprofit leadership class. And if I may, to go on a little further,
You're good.
in the nonprofit sector, it's all about building community. It's all about, improving people's lives, changing people's lives for the better. And so I take that concept in my classes where I have my students volunteer and, go into the community and, you know, whether it's a cleanup or work with the homeless or do some projects around the holidays, it's important for them to know the concept of social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, which is very prevalent in the corporate world today. So the two worlds from my life and my career has kind of collided, and I try to use what I did early in my career teaching my students currently now at Ohio University.
I love thank you so much for the tie-in because it makes a lot of sense understanding the core foundation of community and how that kind of gets um, your two worlds to build or to come together. I'm interested to learn now. You've got a lot of track on your career. What is some of the biggest lessons that you think business owners need to learn, or people in business need to learn? I think one of them you already touched on, which is you know social responsibility turns into corporate responsibility. I think that's a very strong lesson. What other lessons do you think, Gary, that would be really important for people to know, just as they're starting out, or now they've been in business for a while? What is it that people need to learn?
Well, that's a great question. And you know, in my work as a fundraiser, I often tell my clients, fundraising is not just about raising money. If an organization comes to me and says we want to raise money to for a capital campaign or for an endowment campaign, or we want to fix or renovate a building and we want to raise X million dollars. I said, okay, well that's great. That's a good project. The vision, is good. But fundraising can't just be about raising money. It's got to be about, increasing the entity's visibility and awareness in the community. And it
Hmm.
all gets back to mission. What is the mission of that organization? What are they in business for? Who do they help? How do they make this world better? And if you want to raise money, you want to touch people's hearts. So how can I touch your heart and put it in front of you where you would consider to make a gift to support this agency that has this very compelling mission that does good in strengthening the world, basically. I often talk about in my business classes about these companies like Bombas socks and Tom's
Hmm.
shoes and the Starbucks and ice cream companies and things like that. What do they do? They're in business to make money. Sure, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you know what they do? Bombas socks. For every pair of socks that they sell, they donate to the home. They donate a pair to the homeless. Tom
Hmm.
Shoes does the same thing. For every pair of shoes that they sell, they donate a pair to the needy. And it's that type of mindset that I think is so very important because I don't know. I have this thing about aura or putting positive energy out into the world. And when you put those positive vibes out in the world, positive things come back to you in a very, a very positive way. So if there's anything I can, help with businesses, it's got to encourage them or, you know, um, you know, make them think that again, business is more about than making money. It's about improving the society. It's improving people's lives. It's about changing people's lives for the better. It's giving back. It's those type of things that I think
Sure.
is the message that I believe is so very important.
One of the things I think you touched on that I want a lot of business owners listening to understand is the mission that you have as an organization. It is one of the single most overlooked things that I encounter when I work with clients is I first ask, what's your vision? What's your mission? What's the culture like in your organization? Just walk me through it. Talk to me about it. And they all think they have something great because it's written on a wall somewhere, but it's not what they live and breathe every day. So what I try to do as a foundational piece is really teach people the importance of your vision and mission and how they align to get not only the right people to work for you, but the right people that want to engage with and buy from you because of a relationship they believe is stronger than just the product or service they're getting. It's because of your vision and mission that is greater than just that transaction. And you made a really solid point, which is fundraising should be more than getting money. It should be about the relationships, the networking that you do to build that community, but also how does it tie back to your vision and your mission? I'm really interested to see what your thoughts are on how sports and sports entertainment are tying back into a vision or mission as opposed to what most people believe they're just out to make a ton of money because these athletes make so much money now. What is it that's your thought on that?
Well, they are making some astronomical salaries today for sure. Not that they don't deserve it, but if you look at the Chicago Bulls or the Detroit Pistons or any ball club, any franchise, and you go on their website and you look at what their mission is, most times they'll say, they're building a championship team. They want to, winning is important. That's part of their mission. Well, how do they go about it? Is how do they treat their fans? What's the environment of the arena or stadium? Is it clean? Is it attractive? Is it enticing? And again, you know, building a team, again, I think it has to be more about winning. It has to be about improving the environment for the fans to make them feel valued and appreciated. And you go to a game today, it's hard not to spend, less than 100 or $150 on a ticket, if that. And then you add another 20, 30 to 40, $50 for parking and
Hmm.
$15 for a beer. And before you know it, you're spending, a couple $100 just for yourself. If you have a family of three or four or five or whatever, maybe you're dropping 500 to a grand, for a game. So, it's, you know, do they appreciate me? Do they value me as a customer? Is the bathrooms clean, or what's the customer service like? I think it's, again, putting a winning team on the field is important, but I think all those other mission-driven type of characteristics are so very important as well to keep your fans happy.
Yeah, I think the mantra of championship caliber team on and off the field of play is what every organization should strive for. And I don't take that just because that's what the Cleveland Cavaliers or the Cincinnati Bengals, Browns, or whatever should be doing. They should and ought to be doing that. I'm looking at this from a very good message that you state, which is regardless of the field of play you have, whether you're making widgets or you're selling hot air, whatever you're doing as an organization, you should build a championship caliber team on and off the field of play, meaning in the market and within your organization. So people want to work with you. One of the bigger challenge I think most small businesses have, and maybe you can talk about your relationship with some of the nonprofits you work on, is that environment that attracts the right people. I think long gone are the days where I punch in the morning, I punch in the afternoon, I go home, and I know I'm coming back tomorrow, but I don't care. Now it's what level of engagement do you have as an organization to make me want to work for you, right? Employees have a very different mentality towards the companies they work for now. I think people are a lot more interested in bouncing from one company to the next, which is completely fine as long as you bring value. But I think the companies have to bring value too in order to attract those employees. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's very interesting. I'm always a firm believer in business when we talk about motivation. How are you motivated? As an employee, as a supervisee, as someone who's working for me, and I've had many people work for me, work with me over the years, and my philosophy is pretty simple. It's like, it's hard for me to motivate you so that when you get up each morning, you say, "Oh, great, it's another day. I'm going to go tackle. I'm going to help people. I'm going to do this, this, and that." A lot of times people are self-motivated, but is there a way, can I motivate you to work better, work harder, work more efficiently, bring more value to this organization? I think what I can do as a leader, as an executive, is to create that environment that's conducive for you to want to come to work and be productive. What I
Yeah,
can do is I can create a safe environment free from any harassment or abuse. I can create an environment where I'm not micromanaging you, where I'm not standing over your shoulder and looking at you as you dot I's and cross T's. Giving you the freedom to make decisions, empower
mhm.
you to be productive. It's I've had up in my career up to 200, 250 people work in my organization, and I can't do your job and his job and her job and all these other people's jobs. I got to trust you to do. I hire you, I pay you a good wage, I provide you with the resources to be successful, and then get the heck out of your way.
Mhm.
And I have enough to do my job, whether it's internally or externally in the community. So, yeah, I think it's creating that environment where you feel valued and welcomed and safe, and hopefully then you come to work knowing that you're going to be productive and you're going to be appreciated and valued and compensated and have had those resources provided to you so that you can get your work done, whether it's a workspace that's free and clear, it's quiet. Um, having the tools, computers, phones, whatever it may be, the technology today to be successful, and also to be paid at a wage where
Mhm.
you can live and you can you know you can have steak every now and then. You don't have to be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every day. So it's to compensate your people effectively. So that they feel valued and welcomed and appreciated, and then they work at high levels.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis of it all. I've always kind of played with I call them the four A's of building the right environment or having people work for you and want to work for you. And that is you give them the autonomy to do the job you expect them to do, the authority to make decisions and do things because you trust them, right? The accountability to their actions and the results. And at the end of it, you give them the necessary appreciation, whether that is in the form of compensation, recognition, promotion, however. But if you follow those four A's, you'd be shocked how unbelievably strong your organization can perform
I
because
like
you have
it.
right, you have a group of people that are aligned to what you're trying to do. And again, I find it interesting. There's so many studies out there, but there's recently a study that said 8 out of 10 people leave an organization because of pay. That's what they tell their HR person when they're doing their exit interview. But in reality, those 8 people don't leave because of pay. They leave because they don't like their manager.
Right.
So we've got people that are thinking my company is losing people because I'm not paying them enough. And I'm sure there are reasons and situations where people are just not getting paid enough. I recognize that. But a majority, an abundantly large part of them of people that leave organizations do not leave because of money. They leave because of how they're treated, how they feel, how they contribute, or lack of their recognition for contribution. And people just don't feel connected to their business that they're in, so they leave. And what does that leave a business owner to do? They always say, well, I just got to start paying more people more money. And maybe that is the case, right? But at the end of the day, I think the case that they're making for themselves is you are not providing the environment for people to thrive. So therefore they won't. You got to change your mindset towards how you deal with people. And that's a really good conversation to have as a lesson learned, right? Is how do we build those environments?
Absolutely correct. I like your four A's. I think it's great. I'm going to steal that.
It's not
Also,
trademarked. It's not copyrighted. You can use it.
well, it's interesting whether you're working for a board of directors like you would in a nonprofit. I mean, the CEO, the head staff position in a nonprofit is normally the exec or the CEO. But he or she still has to answer to somebody, and they answer to a board of directors. So, if the board sees that there are people flying out the door left and right, they've got to ask themselves a question. Something's not right here.
Mhm.
Why are people leaving it? And like you said, it's usually not they're not always telling you the truth of what you need to hear because they don't want to burn any bridges behind them. They want to be safe. They want a reference. They want to leave, on a good note rather than bad mouthing the boss and then, getting, blacklisted or something or not being able to get a good reference to find something else along the way. So yeah, not everybody is honest when they leave and but it's something that board of directors should look at and should be
Mhm.
involved in. And that board president, that board chair should have a good relationship with that CEO, whoever it might be. And if there are people flying out the door, then they need to certainly address it for sure.
Yeah, there's just a matter of it's almost as if we should take an exit interview, not of the person who's leaving, but 5 of their closest friends. Because that's where they're really going to say, I don't like working here because my boss is a blank, right? So if we could find a way to talk to somebody that's leaving, talk to 5 of their friends, we'd know exactly why they left. But I'm assuming nobody's going to take the strides to do that. All right, I want to get into a different world. So we've talked about some challenges and some lessons. What are some of the bigger challenges that you think for you in the Bernstein Group, what that you've kind of encountered and taken over to a point where now you don't worry about that anymore? I want the audience to get a sense of here's a guy who's been there, done that. What is it that I can learn from him when it comes to challenges that he's faced, and how did that get resolved? So, Gary, what are some of the bigger challenges that you think would be a good story to tell?
Well, again, you're asking some really tough, good questions. Um, I think one in particular would be, based upon lots of years of experience, I sort of I sort of kind of know what works and what doesn't work. And when you offer, I think, some very good sound advice to your client, and they don't take it, it's frustrating, it's
Hmm.
challenging. You understand that they're the client, and they have a right to do or not to take your suggestions. But when you're attached with this particular client or organization and you're taking their money, sometimes it's like, well, do I just keep taking their money even though they're not, listening to me? That's a dilemma. I feel
Hmm.
like I'm a very ethical person, and I almost feel like, well, if you're not going to take my advice, then maybe you should go at it alone or go at it with
Hmm.
somebody else. And I hate to give up any money or any clients, but it's at a point where you think maybe they just need another voice. Maybe they need,
Yeah.
another direction that, they need to move in.
That's an interesting challenge, right? Because as people like you and I that help other businesses, if we're giving advice and it's not being taken, it's a hard pill to swallow because we're the unbiased, dispassionate view of somebody else's baby, and we're trying our very best to be helpful. And when they don't want to listen, it's very challenging for us because we can see, right, clear as day, this is what the challenge is, and you're not facing it head on. What I end up doing is let's talk differently about this in such a way that if you're not going to listen, I understand, and we're probably not going to be good to work together. Let's part ways. And the reason is the reputation of what I do and how I can do it is more important than the money I'm going to get from that one client. Because if it doesn't work 3, 4, 5 months down the road, that same client's going to say, "Well, I had a hard time working with Scott, or I had a hard time working with Gary because everything he told me didn't work." Well, they're leaving out a huge part of that conversation, which was he told me a bunch of things to do. I just decided not to do them. And now I'm going to badmouth him because I didn't get what I wanted out of that relationship. That's a hard pill to swallow. So sometimes, to your point, it's better off to say, my reputation is better preserved than the money in my bank account. I'm fine. I would do better off in the long run because I have people that know, like, and trust me. That's a better position to be in.
Right. And I think what that leads to is a conversation, whether it's here or somewhere else, about the importance of networking, of developing positive relationships. It's those type of things where I think that's a common thread that runs through every organization, and for every successful employee or supervisor or executive or consultant, it's really it can't be about the money. It's got to be about developing those relationships. I tell my students here at Ohio University every single day. You get it out from behind your computer, get out from behind your Xbox and your Facebook and your Snapchat and your TikTok, and get out there and start meeting people and get them to know you. Everybody knows the old saying about it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, that's not really the full statement. It's not only it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. And how do they know you? Is because you get out there in the community,
Mhm.
you work, you volunteer, you go doing practicums and internships and meet people, and that's how you're known. That's how people see you and value you, and then hopefully hire you for employment. So I think if you allowing me the opportunity to kind of move in that direction in this conversation to developing relationships. I've been very lucky in my career to have a skill in writing. And I've written two books, and one of them is a nonprofit leadership book. And there's the common thread in that book is all about developing relationships. And I
Yeah.
try to teach that to my students each and every day.
I think that's important because right now, majority of people believe that business is done through the face of a computer or their handheld device. It's actually done, whether it's on a golf course, in the stadium at a baseball or football or basketball game. There's so much business being done because relationships are being formed in the flesh. And one of the things that I have the biggest challenge of with is how many people do you see in today's society, instead of living in the moment and experiencing it, they're watching something happen through the 4.5 inch screen on their phone. Put that thing in your pocket and enjoy the environment. Engage around you in such a way that you get a chance to meet somebody that you never thought you'd meet because you're not looking at your phone. Granted, you can meet somebody on your phone because of all the different social media stuff, but how important is a relationship going to be when you actually press flesh and you get a chance to shake a hand and talk to somebody over, whether it's a lunch or coffee, whatever? Get out and meet people. It's the most empowering thing that you can do because, to your point, you never know who you know, but you most importantly, you need to understand who knows you, and
That's it.
that's where things are going to change.
Right.
We've got a couple minutes. I got one last question for you. If I were to put you in a time machine and send you back and find the 18-year-old Gary and have you two sit down and have a conversation, what would that conversation be like?
Oh my God. It's like the road not taken. When you come to a road, a fork in the road,
Yeah.
okay. So that's a good one. I think about this quite often, and it's funny you're asking me this. Um, I was an okay student. I was a B student. I didn't really work hard at it, and I did okay. I was in the band. I was a concert master in the band, played the clarinet and saxophone. I was okay, and I was in sports, and I was a black belt in judo, and I've won many medals and trophies. But I was okay,
Yeah.
maybe because I was big and strong. I don't know. I don't know the reasons, but I think if I go back to when I was 18, I think I would have applied myself more. I would have tried harder. I would have worked harder. I would have, if I knew then what I know now, I think who knows what I would have become or would have been done differently. But for a lot of things that I did, I phoned a lot of things in, and I really didn't work really exceptionally hard at it. And so I think going back and looking at what I did, I think I've accomplished a lot in my career,
Yeah.
but I but I but for some reason I feel like I could have done a lot more. I could have helped more
Okay.
people. I could have done different things.
What great great flashback into what your life would have been. I think you've led an incredible life. You've got a lot on, like I said earlier, you've got a heck of a track that you've ridden down in your career. So congratulations on that. Well, I want to say your answer was a very profound one, very similar to what other people have said. But I love the way you approached it, which is I could have applied myself and I could have helped more people. I could have been better, whatever. It's interesting when you get a chance to look back what if, right? And what you're saying is when you're 18 years old, stop asking what if and just say what about and just go
Right.
do it,
Right.
right? Good stuff. Good stuff,
Thank
Gary.
you.
I want to thank you for spending the time with me today. A lot of great lessons. All the information is going to be in the description down below so people can get a hold of you, find out what they can need about your books. I want to do that as well. So we'll have information in here for everybody. Want to thank you and everybody come back next time. It's going to be another great episode of Legacy Leaders. Bye now.